Lessons in Attachment is the podcast where I am talking openly and honestly about some of the key challenges so many of us face in love, dating, and relationships, especially when we relate to having an anxious and/or avoidant attachment style. I'm Carly Ann. I'm a somatic practitioner with a focus on attachment and self-esteem. Driven by my own journey of doing the inner work on healing the past and becoming more secure, this podcast is where you will find top healing tips, other people's lessons in love, and a community of people just like you and just like me that are determined to break the cycle of insecure attachment. I truly believe that everyone deserves a healthy love in their lifetime. Persia, hello.
Hello.
This is a really, really exciting episode for me. And I think also many of the people that listen, I feel like everyone that listens to this must have heard of you. For me, it's a really big deal. And actually, I was thinking today of why I haven't had you on already, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're one of the biggest love coaches in London, right? You say in this country. I think I was thinking maybe I was a bit intimidated, not by you, but by like, you wouldn't say yes, or you're going to say no, and things like that. So I also see this as a big message of like, knock on doors, because you were just like, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
And all that time just hadn't taken that leap, you know?
It's my favorite thing. Like I used to be an actor, so for me, this is the easiest way to. It doesn't feel like work. It just feels like it's my passion, and I love it. And yeah, really. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge you for owning that, and it's a really good lesson in love. And it's like we make up stories, don't we? And we make up narratives in our head about even if you're like you fancy someone and you want to flirt, well, whatever it is, and you make up stories, and they probably are not true.
That's it, isn't it?
True.
Yeah, and here's my proof. So tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, who you help.
So I've actually been pivoting my business over the last few years. So before, I was essentially helping single women heal the blocks in their love life that were standing between where they were and having a healthy, soulful, committed relationship. And I'm still doing that. But what I've been guided towards over the last few years, particularly after everything that was happening with COVID, and it sort of happened quite organically. I found that the one-to-one clients I was attracting and that I was most passionate about supporting were really women who, like me, identified as high achievers or female leaders in some capacity, particularly women who, big-hearted, ambitious women who want to do good shit in the world, and yet they felt really blocked in their love life, and actually their love life was sabotaging their career, and even their career was sabotaging their love life. And for me, that's become, I have identified in the past as a workaholic, and that was a way ever since I was younger, dealing with growing up with my parents struggling with addiction. My way of dealing with it was twofold: boys, and the escapism and validation that I would get from just always being in love, falling in love, chasing, or in avoidance, very, very dramatic dysfunctional relationships with men or boys from a very young age. It was that, and it was also work and being the best and being getting the lead roles at school and the Once in Royal David City solo at Christmas and all these sort of things. And so I've become increasingly fascinated between the link between those things, and the women like myself who identify on the one hand as being a high achiever and doing well in their career, but on the other hand, being a complete disaster in their love life. And it's been amazing to watch the women that I've coached who identify like that transform their love life and go on to attract what I refer to as a true power couple relationship, which is not about being beautiful, rich, and famous, although you can absolutely be those things as well. We're sold a lie in the media that, if you are those things and then you couple up with someone else who is also those things, then you're going to be this power couple and it's going to be amazing. But look at Kim and Kanye. That does not work. True power couple, it's actually the reverse. It's not about what it looks like on the outside. It's about who you both are on the inside. It's about compassion, connection, communication. It's about, the relationship having ultimately a positive impact, not just on the couple, but on their loved ones, on the communities, on the world at large. And that's not what, when I I've been with my husband now coming up to 8 years. We got married finally last summer because we had to cancel a few times because of COVID. I'll be honest, I wasn't going into that relationship thinking I want to be in a true power couple relationship and I want us to change the world. I wasn't thinking that. I was just thinking I want to have a healthy relationship that supports and elevates rather than distracts me from the important work I feel called to do in the world, because I was already, already had a book deal when I met him. I was actually just finished the first draft of The Inner Fix the day before I met him. I was already very much in that space. So I wanted a partner that, wouldn't sabotage that, because I'd always, that was the one thing that would distract me from work, would be like a bloke would come along and then, I was out till God knows what hour, and, whatever project I was doing, it would always get put on the back burner. But over time, it's, we went into our wedding last year. And it was, for us, aside from the creative aspect, he works in film and I used to be an actor. And so we're very passionate about all the music and all of the visuals. Like, it was really out there. It was a whole festival weekend. Obviously, we met at a festival, but we were also like, we want to give everyone who comes like a life-changing experience. So we had like sound healings. We had all sorts of stuff going on. And then it's evolved into becoming our own festival called Peace and Love. And like, we just want to use our different passions and skills to like essentially what we did at the wedding was raise money for charity, and we want to do that again. And it's just sort of becoming its own thing. And what I've learned, and I've really learned this as well from watching my parents, who were, battled with a really crippling drug addiction when I was growing up, and they both went on their own healing journeys individually, and then also together. And I've just seen how their lives have transformed, how they've then been able to be of service to so many people, whether in AA, my dad runs a meeting and, sponsors people, and they've traveled and they've given to charities and they've worked and supported charities and all of this. And it's enabled them to actually grow stronger, because it's not just about them, it's about giving back. It's the concept of service. So that, and I don't think that gets talked about nearly enough in terms of the romantic sphere. Philanthropy is a great thing, but if you infuse that into your romantic relationship, the relationship becomes stronger. So that's what I'm really passionate about at the moment.
So how would people, if you're going into dating, what are you looking out for to cultivate that, to bring that into your relationships?
It starts with you. So again, when I met my husband, even though I wasn't consciously thinking about the true power couple relationship, what I was doing, I was writing a book. So I was very much, I was in my career working on this, but I was also embodying it in my life. So I was meditating, I was, journaling, I was doing yoga, I was talking about my vision for my life. And so that just naturally was infused into our conversations right from the get-go. And so that's it. It's not, it doesn't matter what career you're in. How are you showing up in your life? If you're listening to this podcast, it already tells me that you're someone who does give a shit. You care, you're into self-development, you're working on yourself, you're interested in growth. So you're already doing really, really well. But what I do see too often, like I've had clients who, they want to hide that part of themselves when they go dating, because they think, it's cringe and the guy won't be into it. This comes back to the thing that just came into my mind then was that Marianne Williamson quote, that really famous one: our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And I would say that can also be the case in our romantic life. We don't want to shine, we don't want to show that we are growing and healing and been through these challenges and coming out the other side. And we've been sold a lie that we've got to be the cool girl, we've got to be breezy, and we've got all this bullshit. It's complete bullshit. It's like, be who you are and own it. And when you show up in that energetic space, from even before date one, for the first point of contact, if you're on a dating app or you're out in a bar, however it is, be who you are, all parts of it, own it, be who you are. And it really, like, people are not, like, the majority of people don't do that. And that's why when my husband met me, he's like, I've never met anyone like you. Like, because I was just like, I'm no longer willing to abandon who I am, abandon my truth in order to, to try and manipulate and coerce some guy into being into me, or, present this sort of constructed version of myself to try and make them like me, because guess what, that only ever lasts so long. So people always come to me, and that one of the common things I see, it's interesting, it's either I can't get get past date 3, or I can't get past the 3-month mark. Always. And I'm like, because at the date 3 is where you do start to get into more intimacy, and like you're beyond the surface level, and if you can either go deeper or you can't. 3-month mark, it's the same thing. If you've had this facade going on, that's gonna, by 3 months it starts to slip. You just can't maintain it. So you might as well just be who you are from the very beginning, and that's a lot easier said than done. So what I say in my book Love Is Coming, that is actually the most irritating advice. The advice I just gave you is actually what I tell you not to do. When people say be who you are, it's like, well, what does that even mean? The more helpful way of looking at this idea is notice, and not just romantically, but all the different relationships in your life. Notice where you naturally are just being who you are. There's just some people and you meet them and straight away it's so easy. That's how it was with me and my husband. But I've also had that with certain girlfriends. Like, I feel closer to sometimes to certain women that I've met a month ago than I do women I've met, I've known for sort of 20 years, because there's just that connection, there's that chemistry. And I think that's it. So just instead of trying to be who you are, which means you're essentially performative, just notice where you naturally are, and then invest more of your time and energy in the dynamics, not even just human, like obviously around the humans that make you feel safe to be who you are, but also in the spaces and in the environments and doing the things that make you feel more like yourself. That has been one of the most useful things I've ever learned in my love life. And it also doesn't mean you then need to just cut people off. It just means you're not energetically invested. You're not like kind of constantly trying to meet up with people who, let's be honest, you have some sort of trauma bond with, and you're trying to win them over in some way. And it's not even just romantically that happens. I notice, especially the healthier my love life got, it's like all my friendships that were unhealthy really started to flare up, and I had to apply a lot of what I teach in relationships to my relationships with girlfriends. So yeah, the work never stops, basically.
There are so many nuggets in there. Like, genuinely, I was like, oh my God, I've got an example of that, like that I've been through. It resonates so much that, yeah, there were so many. And then I thought to myself, you know what, you don't need to repeat them all back, because you covered that so well. You're so skilled at getting that, every point that you just said, getting it across. So skilled. So I'm really excited for people that have just heard that. I remember being too afraid to say that I'm into self-help. It was like such a secret. And I talk a lot about one of the times when things really changed for me, and I had been trying to show up a bit more as myself, because with you can see I'm going through everything you just said. What I relate to about your experience is the dysfunctional dating and the chasing and the relationships. The high achieving, not so much for me. I kind of career just stayed at a level until I went through this big breakup, and then I was like, you know what, I've wanted to be a coach, why am I not doing it? But during doing all of that work, I remember saying to this guy, we were in this bar, and I wasn't rude or anything, I just told him I don't really like this kind of music. And in the past I would have gone home and been terrified, this guy's going to end it now because you said that. But I just naturally was able to be like, well, that's okay, because I don't like that kind of music. So I think just that it's the smallest like things, isn't it, where you begin to just be yourself, but not then beat yourself up for being yourself. Does that make sense? Like, there was never a point where I was going to be like, if he had turned around and ended it, I just kind of agreed with myself there and then, I'm not going to go over that I shouldn't have said that. Because it just
it's like literally what you got to think is, if that's going to turn them away from you, what the hell's going to happen 5 years down the line where you accidentally fart in front of them? Or I mean, that's usually a lot sooner, but like, that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I don't fart in front of people.
Well,
I never have.
You're a better woman than me.
I know, I never have. Even my friends will say, don't fart, maybe I need to work on that. But I don't. But neither does my partner, weirdly. So maybe that's a match.
Well,
who knows?
Yeah,
it's weird, isn't it, for him not to?
But you know,
But
sometimes,
yeah.
okay, let me tell you, go and spend a bloody month in India. Like we just spent
Do
two
you
months
think
in
we will
India.
be?
It's
So
going to
maybe that's what we
happen.
need to do.
Yeah, shake it up a bit, or
He
go
just
and do
needs to go
ayahuasca in
first.
Costa Rica like we did last year.
Yes.
That's where you have, you know, and you know, or have a baby or whatever it is. At some point, all
It's
of
gonna
those
go out the
things. I'm not
window.
just talking farting, like you know what I mean. It's gonna things that cracks are gonna show up, and so I don't even know how we got onto this conversation about
I
farting. Now coming
know,
to
I
something
know.
else.
Just being yourself, though, isn't it? The other thing that you just reminded me of is because I was having this conversation last night with someone, was you'll know this so much that she was saying, but the first month, like he was amazing. It was like special this first month. And, you know, she's a long way into this now, still hoping that that person can come back. And I went with the 3 months. Like it needs to be 3 months at least so that someone can start showing their true colors. So you think like date 3 month is when, because I couldn't get past 8 weeks
Well, I
dating.
guess, you know, obviously there are nuances and everyone's different, but
Yeah,
the
of course.
pattern, like I have enough data now to see that that's the number that kept coming up.
Yeah.
So I'd say around 70-80%. So of course it's going to be slightly different for different people, but there was something about that, and that made me inquire into like, what's that about? And that's what I've got another thing this making me think of, because I'm thinking about seasons. And earlier I was leading a meditation in one of my in my program, Love for Leaders, and it was really weird. I was talking about like, oh, we're moving into from winter into spring, and then I opened my eyes and it was snowing. It's like, or not. And then I don't even know how I've got onto this. Oh yeah, that was it. So time periods. Obviously, you think 3 months is a quarter. I've always been, by the way, obsessed with time. Like I've got a really weird thing about it. Obsessed with it. So 3 months is a quarter of a year. 3 months is a season. Something else I talk about in my book, Love for Leaders, is Love is Coming, is wait until you see through all the seasons with someone before you make any major decision. And I say that from experience, because firstly, someone could be an asshole in winter, but lovely in summer, and you might meet them in summer and not, you know, whatever, like there's that side of it. But a lot can come up, and like 3 months tends to be the honeymoon period. So say there's two people, like me and my husband, super into each other. He actually went to Bali for the first we dated for 2 weeks. He went to Bali for 6 weeks with his friends, which had already been booked, came back. So that at this point, we're 2 months in, we're still in the honeymoon phase. And I remember so clearly, it was like after it was extended because he'd been away. So it's probably around 5-ish months. And all the stuff started to come up, and I really had to work through it, because you know, the facades, you know, you start to really see the triggers in each other, and it stops, you know, the novelty of newness. And so I always say, like, take it slowly. Again, I don't know how we've got here, but let's go with it. Take it slowly, and don't make any major decisions when you're in that crazy honeymoon phase. The other side of looking at that, which I really, you know, believe in, I always get confused if it's duality or polarity. It's dualities where two things can be true at the same time. I think that's it.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you know, not to make any major decisions like moving in, having a baby, getting engaged or married or things like that. And I've had clients who've done all of them and it's gone tits up. Obviously, there's the exception to the rule, but they are very few and far between. There's always the exception. There's few and far between. What was I going to say? The other side of that is Marianne Williamson, who is, you know, I mentioned her already with that quote. She's a really big American sort of spiritual teacher. She teaches on A Course in Miracles, a spiritual work. And she says she's got a really interesting book called Enchanted Love that no one really knows about. It's quite weird, but it's also amazing. So you have to it's one of those books you've got to take what you like and leave the rest. There's some bits that you're a bit like, I'm not sure about that. But one thing she says that really stuck out with me, she says that when you first, on a spiritual level, when you first connect with someone, you see them as they truly are. So that all those, I'm actually getting tingles, all of those feelings of love, like you're on ecstasy, that we are told, oh, that's the honeymoon phase, it won't last. She says, that's actually the truth. You are seeing them from the lens of true love, like God would see them. It's what she would say. You know, it is the most that is truth. And then what happens is unreality and separation set in. So actually your job is to try and keep seeing them through that lens of love that you first, connected with them, when you first connected with them. That's not to say, what I would add there is like to bring your brain along, because I think, again, I'm so sorry, we've digressed. I don't even know what the question
No, it's great.
was.
No,
But
all
it's,
good.
it is about, yes, being open, being vulnerable, being compassionate. I love romance, being loved up, but let's bring our brain along for the ride, because if you have too much of one energy, like all the love and all that, and you don't have that strength and those boundaries and that sort of grounding, then you're off in the ethers, and it always, we all know it all falls to shit at some point, because you haven't got that like really strong energy in there. But if you have all of that very like boundaries, strength, like directness, but you don't have that love in there and that like sort of lightness and playfulness, and then it's like, well, what the hell's the point? Where's the fun? So my journey in my own life and relationship, and something I really help women with now, is like, how do we balance the two sides of that coin? Because ultimately that is where that is the only way I've ever seen a healthy and sustainable and a happy relationship can evolve and last, because you need both of those qualities. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I have no idea what the question was.
No.
I don't know why that wanted to come through. That wanted to come through.
I love that. Do you know what though? It's so relevant, because realistically the audience listening to this relate to, I would say, primarily anxious attachment. So definitely that jumping straight in, not necessarily bringing the brain along, feeling like possibly they are. And usually I would say, and avoidant, more so than people that are just avoidant listening to this. But obviously if you are, hello. So it's really relevant, especially that need for slowing down at the beginning. Do you work with people a lot of the time who are just jumping in, more worried about whether this person likes them, kind of forgetting about themselves? Are you seeing that a lot? Like, because I know that you do work with people who are identifying as leaders. Do you see that pattern as well?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, arguably some of my most successful clients that I'm talking about, like on a global scale, very successful, are absolutely anxious attached and avoidant, which again, obviously can be super linked. So it's, I think, and that's been another really interesting layer of my work. I think we can have, like, you would never believe it if you looked at them. You think you're beautiful, you're successful, you're talented, you must have them beat it, literally. And they could have so many gala, of course they could, it's available to them. They can't see it. And because, as Dr. Wayne Dyer says, we don't attract who we want, we attract who we are. Which is to say, if I am predominantly really insecure, it's not that I'm going to necessarily attract someone who's insecure. I'm going to attract someone who is going to reflect back to me my insecurity. So it doesn't matter what the world sees. It matters how you feel. That's always the experience. I've got clients who, wouldn't identify themselves, or I've worked with many women over the years who wouldn't identify themselves as leaders per se. And they wouldn't necessarily look at their career and go, oh my God, you're super, super impressive. And they're like the healthiest, happiest in their love life. It's simply, what is your relationship with yourself? Because every other relationship is going to be a mirror. And one thing I hear a lot is like, how come, I do all this work on myself and I'm still struggling, and that person's done fuck all work on themselves and they're in a happy relationship? And I say, number one, you don't know that they're in a happy relationship.
Yes.
You don't know. Number two, if they are, look, we all have different struggles and different challenges in our life. Some people that, for me, my biggest struggle was always my love life. And it's not that I couldn't get men. I could get men. I just, like, firstly, it was the kind of men I was attracting. And then it was the sabotaging and the, as a cheating addict, I ended up in Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous for it. So it's not that, it's not as simple. It's just not as clear cut and simple as this person's successful, therefore they must have a successful love life. Like, the opposite can be true. Again, comes back to what is your relationship with you? Because water seeks its own level, you know, and you can see that in relationships. You can see when you've got two people, and again, not to say that both are perfect. Me and my husband are so far from perfect, but my God, when I think back to how much, you know, we entered the relationship actually pretty healthy. For me, I was like the healthiest I'd been. But then I had a new level, new devil when I got into the relationship. You know, I had to go through all the stuff that comes up. In my book, Love is Coming, and in my program, Love for Leaders, I basically take you on a journey, which I went through, which is heal, attract, commit. Most people are desperate. They're like, I want to commit. I want to get that committed relationship. So I just want to manifest all the self-development talk. I want to manifest. Tell me how to manifest. Tell me how to manifest. That was me as well, by the way. Give me the fucking, you know, secret. And if you have not done a significant body of healing work first, then you may well attract, like I never didn't have a problem attracting, but it's what you're attracting. You're attracting at the level that you're at. What I then see, and this is particularly true of women in the self-development space and wellness space, because again, I don't think this is talked about enough. We can then get trapped in the heal cycle where we're just healing, and that's great, you know, that's really important. But then you start dating, and because you haven't upgraded your skill set around dating, you don't know how, because that's different. It's a different energy, it's a different skill set to what you're doing in the healing. That sort of journey is very much you and you. Attract is where you're starting to deal with other people, so there's different issues and different problems that come up. So what I see happen is women who are, you know, done a lot of work on themselves, and they're like, why is it not happening for me? Why is it not happening for me? Well, you might attract someone, you don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to connect into, you know, tap into and leverage, quite frankly, your feminine power, like divine femininity, all those things that get talked about, but you don't know how to tap into that. And at the same time, what we talked about earlier, that having that playfulness, that like lightness, and blending that with that strength, that directness, those boundaries, all of that. If you then upgrade those skill set, the next part is, as I've talked about, the moving into commitment. And this is where, when you mentioned in terms of attachment, avoidance comes in. So I can't tell you I'm talking like probably 90%, if I had to put a number of clients work with me, they attract exactly what they said they wanted. And then they go to me, I don't know if I fancy him. I just don't know. I don't know about it. And they are literally, like I did, like looking to find a way out. And before, for me, that would be cheating. When I started to get healthier, I didn't want to cheat. I was beyond the cheating part. So that's what you actually mentioned. I think it might have been before we press record, the ick. Or maybe it was, I can't remember, the ick. Yeah. That's where the ick comes up. Yeah. And that what's going on, it's your brain trying to protect you, because humans are always drawn to what is familiar over what is unfamiliar. Even if what's unfamiliar, it could be like so much better and great. It's the whole thing of better the devil you know, or shit stinks, but it's warm. You know, we like being in our comfort zone, even if our comfort zone is like quite fucking miserable. So when we get that amazing relationship with someone who absolutely adores us, it feels really scary and unfamiliar and extremely vulnerable. It's like you feel so seen, almost naked. So you either want to sabotage it, or you want to, the easiest way out is, I don't fancy him. Because there's that stability and security, and there's also that thing in you that's like, where's the drama? I've had clients say to me, and I remember saying this myself, it's like, why can't he just sort of play hard to get a bit? Or like, why can't he just, I don't know, just be a little bit more of a dickhead? Like, everything you were crying about like last year, saying you never were going to put up with this shit again, is what you want to go back to because it's comfortable. So that's why I developed this program, because I just kept, you know, seeing time and time again, it's like people just going around. Yes, they would get somewhere, but then they would just go back, and it was so frustrating. So the commit, I've just done a retreat in Goa, and that was it was the end of the commit program that I'd run, and now it's all one big program. But commit is where people's shit comes up the most. It really, really is. And it doesn't get talked about enough, because we tended to just leave it like the milestone is get the relationship, get engaged, move in, get a house, you know, married, kids, whatever. And no one is telling you about all the hard things that come with that. Well, what about when you actually get your dream and then you suddenly go, oh, it's not as good as I thought it would be, or it's not all it's cracked up to be. And there's a load of new problems that no one told me were going to be there. You know, so yeah, there's a lot of work basically, and it never ends.
It doesn't. It
It's
really
worth it.
doesn't. Yeah, it is. But no, you're right. Because I'm moving into, I should know this, I know, but just the way things were, it's a bit like the second year,
Hmm.
maybe, like definitely the second year of knowing each other,
Yeah.
towards the second year of it, being together. And you're absolutely right. And for me, I would say, looking back now, I don't know if I felt this at the time, but looking back, it was so hard those first 6 months, just
Mm,
because of my anxiety that
yeah.
I'd been working on in that healing phase, like you say. But luckily, I had done enough that I could manage myself.
Yeah.
Not enough that he didn't realize, but I'd done enough that it didn't push away, and that's to do with him as well, the kind of person
Mhm.
he is. um but yeah, navigating that part was probably some of my biggest lessons.
Mm,
you know
mhm.
what do you what do you do as a coach? Because I can hear, I feel like perhaps, people that listen to this, one of the biggest complaints is that, but it's boring, but the
Mm,
chemistry isn't there. And I do think we get very stuck, and maybe it's because it's much easier to write a post about unavailable relationships and the anxiety.
mhm.
So that boredom, that fear of the security, the safety, what's your first step into that? Is it first pointing out to people that this is happening?
Mhm.
Like, and do you, in fact, let me just one step back because it just came to me. How do you help someone decipher between they're not into this person
Mhm.
and they're avoiding?
Great question. So on a really practical level, I say to people, 3-date rule. Go on 3 dates with this person, because you can be really surprised. This might be a slow burner, and you've just got to remember, if you know that if you're sat opposite a guy, he could be really interesting, but if he's not triggering, if he's not triggering your anxiety, then for you have read the anxiety as like that's like a my cue that I'm into this person. Maybe it's the bad boy or whatever it is, and that's just, again, that's what's normal to you. So too often than not, I would see people who write off and by the way, I can't tell you how many of those people are now married. And let me just, actually, that reminds me, when I first met my husband, lol, husband, sorry, whoops. When I met my husband, I remember going, maybe it was a week or so after we met, and ended up going to one of my best friend's brother's 30th in a pub. And I remember saying to my friend, that boy will never be my boyfriend. She went, why? I went, he's too keen. Like it's just, he was so available and so clear about how he felt about me. And now I'm like, I cannot imagine my life without you. Like, I know I'd be okay. I would, of course I would, because I've got the skill set and blah, blah, blah. And of course I could meet someone else. But oh my God, I feel like I've struck gold, because we like essentially the next stage after heal, attract, commit, and this is way down the line, that's evolve. And for me, that's been our journey. Plant medicine, I won't go into that now, because that's sort of maybe for another day. But you basically, you cannot really trust. Like, on the one hand, again, duality: listen to your gut and trust your gut. Don't listen to your fucking head. My gut knew that he was my person. Like, the story of how we met, I won't go into it because it's quite long, but it was,
I know it. So I've
you
no.
know it, yeah. When I tell people, like, we shared it, I shared it in my speech at our wedding, because a lot of people didn't know, and they wanted to know why I'd walked down the aisle to Jurassic Park theme tune, and
Yeah.
it's a whole story about that. People cannot believe it, and I was like, that's why I feel like I was born to do this work, because the way that we met, it's just so insane. I was meant to meet him. I know I was meant to meet him. But even with all the crazy synchronicities and coincidences, and my gut was like, yep, this is my person. And everything lined up. My brain was going, oh, he will never be my boyfriend, even though it was the easiest. Not just the easiest, I was also having the most fun. So I literally was like, my only reasoning was, he was too keen. And that's usually what it comes down to, is that the guy's available. So I say, practically, 3-date rule, because, like, I remember the moment it changed for me. And I remember suddenly, like we were just speaking and I suddenly saw him in a different way. And I suddenly basically like, it's like I suddenly had a different respect for him. I can't explain it. Because I think
Was
I
that
had
within 3 days?
kind of, I mean, we saw each other a lot in that time, but I would say thereabouts,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, I've always tried to like, what was that about? I hadn't really taken him that seriously because of how available he was to me. I was taking other dickheads who treat me like shit, like what I respect, not respected, but yeah, I guess I kind of did have a respect for them because they had positioned themselves as above me, or in my mind, because they were being a bit hot and cold and unavailable. I had them on a pedestal, whereas I felt like he kind of had me on he had me on a pedestal, but not in an annoying way, like in a just sort of like, I think you're great, like you're amazing, I'm so into you. Like just no bullshit, just no games. And I didn't know what the fuck to do with it. I just didn't know what to do with it. And any guy who'd been like that before, I was out of there. Even if I even attracted those sort of guys. But when I did, I would, cheat. I would sabotage it very quickly. I couldn't, because again, it's a bizarre feeling. There is nothing more vulnerable making than when someone looks you in the eye and is like, I adore you. I think you're amazing. It's bizarre that that's what we think we want. And then when it happens, it's like, like I remember feeling like suffocated almost and so scared, not because he wasn't being too much. He was just being really chilled and really clear. But it reflected back to me like, oh yeah, you need, like, do you believe you deserve this? Can you receive this? The main issue is that we actually struggle to receive that love because we don't feel that we're worthy. We struggle to be seen in that way because we don't feel we're good enough. It's really overwhelming. That's the word I've been trying to find. Really overwhelming. So that's why I would say go slowly. Don't write someone off unless they give you a bloody good reason to write them off, and just take it super slow and see how it evolves. Honestly, I have clients who said the same as me. He's never going to be my boyfriend. And I said, please trust me. I've got a feeling about this. And my gut's pretty on point, quite witchy like that. Just one date a week, just go slowly. You can date other people. And now they're like so happy, married or have kids or living together, like, so we can't often trust our thoughts.
Okay. So 3 dates.
3 dates. And actually,
Yeah.
and at the end of the third date, you might then go, maybe I'll give it 3 more. It's not like 3 dates, like basically get to 3 dates and then reassess and ask yourself, a few questions. Do I feel like myself around this person? Because if you don't, like I said earlier, that's a sign it's not for you. Do I feel like myself? Does conversation flow? Or is it a lot of awkward silences? What other questions do I have? Like, are they interested? Are they interested in me? Am I enjoying my time with them? It doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning. This has been the most exciting time of my life, because guess what? I had the most exciting time of my life with the bad boys. That was never going to be a sustainable relationship. But remember, this makes me think of the A Course in Miracles, which I mentioned earlier. A quote from there: only what I am not giving can be lacking in any situation. So if I'm saying this person is boring and the dynamic is boring, it's like, maybe I need to bring some fun into this. Maybe I need to show up in a different energy and stop projecting that onto the other person as my cop out, because it is a cop out so much of the time. Obviously, if someone's a dickhead to you, that's a different story. But if you're just going, I'm not feeling the spark, so much of the time the spark develops. It even did, in a way, me and my husband had amazing chemistry, but there was a spark of me actually taking it seriously took me a while. So give it time.
And okay, I've got 3 questions to ask you that I ask everyone. But just before that, what is coming to me, but it's not really forming in words, is something around. So I understand the healing. What are the signs? I guess it's signs of someone that has been doing the healing work. They're able to start, reflecting on, why am I feeling this? Why am I not feeling this? What are the signs that perhaps it is now time to explore dating, explore how you're communicating, in fact, do you have any tips just to, go into dating out of healing?
Okay. So the first thing I want to say is note, like, realizing this is a really fun season.
Yes,
But for
isn't
some
it?
people, it's like, honestly, for me, I didn't struggle with the concept of dating, really. It was that, so it's the self-awareness to know, where do I struggle most? So I knew, okay, dating, I don't struggle with the dating part per se. I struggle with the types of people that I'm attracting, and I struggle with the sabotage. And so noticing your patterns, and
That's
notice, are you
gold, yeah.
someone where you just want to be, this is something that comes up a lot recently with clients. Do you just want to be sat with your notebook and pen? And you're justifying that to yourself as like, I'm learning, I'm growing. It's like, no, you're at this point, you're using it as an excuse to not grow, because now this healing work that was once really scary and confronting is your comfort zone. It's your new comfort zone. So the thing about dating, it's about expression.
Yeah.
And what we need to remember is we need to be extremely self-compassionate, because women have not had power autonomy for very long at all. We've not had choice around who we date, or even earning our own money and paying on a date, all the different shit that comes up with dating. And so the idea of actually communicating to a man what we desire and what we want and what is not okay with us and what our boundaries are, we can feel like we're going to die, because at one point in history, for a lot of history, that would have been the case, like if we'd said certain things to a man. And so we've got to give ourselves some credit and go slowly. But there is no other experience. Like, you've got to practice, you've got to get out there and do it. So if you're gonna, like, okay, so I'm gonna get out there and do it, what I want to say is, don't kid yourself. This is another massive limiting belief. The only way I can meet someone these days is on a dating app. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Like, no, that is a story that you are now making true for yourself. Whatever you believe will become your reality. So that's not true at all. The second thing is, look around. If you're going to do dating apps, and I always say to people, if dating apps are making you feel crazy and anxious, they're not serving you. They're actually sabotaging your love life. So unless you actually got some really healthy practices around it, just get the hell off them and be present in your life, which is to say, put your fucking phone down, look at people, smile at people, be open and receptive when you're out with friends. Like, people say, oh, you can't meet people in a pub. I was like, that's absolute nonsense. I meet people all the time, and I have to be like, sorry, married, I'm like, shit, like I'm like, shit, my light must be on, as they say, like, you've got to turn your light on.
Yes.
I've got a friend who is so beautiful and incredible, but she does, like, I can see men don't feel like they can approach her. She doesn't seem approachable because she can be very shut off, and it's anxiety, and I get that. But you've got to be aware of that, like, how open and receptive am I? So it's okay if guys come up to me and flirt with me, and I can say, sorry, I'm married. You know what I mean? I would rather still be an open person. I don't, just because I'm married, I don't have to like close my energy off. So think about what is my energy like in my day-to-day life. Look at work, look at all the different areas. Walking to work, smile at people. I know we're in the UK and no one fucking does it, but smile at people. Look up, put the phone away. That's, honestly, if nothing else, that will change your entire reality. What else would I say? Things to practice is, write down what your boundaries are, write down what you desire. So for example, if you desire you want a relationship, you need to be clear about that from date one. And so people are like, and look, there's a whole skill set that I teach around, like, what actually do you say and how do you do that? Because I know that, and people are like, that sounds so intense. Well, it's like, works for all of my clients. You have to build up to that. Men, we don't give them enough credit. It's like we make up stories. That's gonna make me seem really desperate. Actually, it does the opposite. Your energy is what makes you seem desperate, love. Like, your energy is what makes you seem desperate. You can try and pretend to be the breezy girl, but your energy is showing the truth. If you're someone, you're not saying you want a relationship with them. You're just, a really good, easy way into this is you could say to someone, so yeah, when was your last relationship? Even that, I have so many women go, I couldn't possibly. Why not? You're not there to be fucking mates. You're on a bloody date. Like, you need to find out when their last relationship was, because if they came out of an 8-year relationship a month ago, like one of the guys that I went on a date with back in the day, guess what? They are not going to be ready for a healthy relationship. They're just not. they can say, oh, you know, the classic men always say, oh, it was over ages before it was over. Well, why the hell didn't you leave? Because that shows me a lot about you. If you didn't have the balls to leave, then you're not in a place right now that I like, you're not a match for me. Because that's why when I met Joe, he'd been single for a couple of years. Like I'd always overlapped. So you need to get the lay of the land on a first date. You need to find out when their last relationship was, and be clear about when yours, and what are they looking for? Like, are you looking for a bit of fun? Do you want a relationship? Like, why are you on the app? Like, how you just be fucking upfront and just own it. But the problem is, I can say all of this and it's not a big deal to me because obviously I do this for a living. But even before I met Joe, the reason I met him is that I had worked on this stuff so much. And because of practice, it no longer felt like a big deal.
Yeah.
So again, it comes with practice, but it also comes with, you know, it like anything, when you know what to do and you know what to say, and you practice that, it makes it a lot easier. And I had, like, honestly, in my book Love Is Coming, I'd say all of this stuff, you know, there's a lot in there that sort of helps you get prepared for it. But dating for a lot of people, you know, is terrifying because they actually have to deal with another person and put themselves out there. And that's really scary.
Honestly, those tips, so good. And I can say that they all ring really true. I remember, you know, the exercises that I was doing around the energy, just when I go out and just being more open to people. Like, I truly do remember that. And so those tips, I'll listen back to them and I'll literally list them for people, because each one I was like, yes, I did have to do that. I did have to practice that. And so I do wonder, like, maybe I wouldn't be quite where I am now without those practices and those steps, you know, because, and I did meet my boyfriend out. So it is possible. And I was kind of the opposite. I had this inner knowing that, like, it wasn't going to be on an app, but I'd never really been successful with apps. Everything had always kind of been off them anyway. So I guess when you have that evidence, isn't it?
Well, that's also, you put another point, say there, because most people that I meet, they don't want to meet someone on an app. They just think that's the only option available. I'm so happy that I keep connecting with people when I'm out. So even if you can't quite get your head around, like, you're going to meet your partner out and about, to say, like, I'm loving that I'm being flirting and finding, you know, people, guys are checking me out and I'm having so much fun when I'm out with friends, or like, you know, go, and this is so bloody, it's pretty basic bitch what I'm about to say, but it's, you know, people don't know. Go and get a fucking hobby, like, go and do stuff. And it doesn't even matter if it's not about going to meet a man, it's about you getting in a fresh energy and getting off your fucking phone, you know? Like, we all need to remember, like, we've become so addicted to these things. And so it's not even just about literally meeting someone when you're out. It's our energy is going like this constantly, and that gets felt. And, you know, I've got, so interesting, because I know a few people who aren't on social media and they're just not really ever with their phones. They're like, oh yeah, I left my phone at home. Their energy is completely different from the rest of us. And it does make me think, you know, I need to do that. We're just like, leave your phone at home. You don't need it. Like, I'm having like a belated birthday thing this Saturday. And actually, I think I might do that, because I'm like, I know where I'm going to be. Other people can take pictures. I don't need to be taking pictures. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't seen my friends for a few months because we've been away, and a lot has happened in our group, and I just want to be present. So, like, just don't take my phone out.
I can feel that. I can feel your, like, inner connection right now with, like, less phone. I feel like that came through this conversation. So it's amazing you're going to take it for yourself.
A new practice I started last year when I was in Costa Rica. I took the whole month of January off social media, and I did it again this year. And it's really the hard thing with that. Listen, I have an online business, and so it's not ideal, and I definitely need to find a way to make this work. I have a team who, like, you know, could post stuff, but not being on stories and all of that. But at the same time, I was like, my mental health's more important. And what, you know, I'm giving the first part and the best part of every year to myself. And I can't tell you what that did for me. So I invite people, especially if you don't have a business online, go off social media for January. Like, there's something about January where it's a fresh slate, and was really game changing for me.
And you know what? Most coaches that I know, January was very quiet anyway. So you're all good.
There you go.
So, and, you know, I know you said that was basic, but as you were saying that, I was thinking, sometimes we can just choose the simple, like, tips and the simple strategies. And I
Yeah.
think maybe there was something else that I felt like you really gave me permission for just then. What was that? It'll come back to me. Oh yes, saying to clients, get off the app then. I think I've resisted
Yeah.
saying that to them. So if any of my clients in the future hear me saying that, you can know it's come from Persia.
Get off the apps, get off. And also, right, here's something that will help, because if you're so locked into that, and I get why, because that's what you're being peddled across the board. Apps is there, and I just want to be clear, I'm not anti-apps. I actually collaborate with an amazing app which is called Badoo, which is all about honesty. Like, I really love that ethos, but it's not the only way to meet people, you know. So you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You might just go, do you know what? It's driving me crazy. I'm going to take a month off. So it's not like I'm swearing them off for life. I'm going to take a month off. I'm going to focus on getting myself energetically, mindset, physically, all of that into the best place, really making myself feel as happy as I can, and just seeing what comes from that. And then I'll revisit in a month, see where I'm at. And you might go, do you know what? I'm feeling good. I'm going to stay off for another month or another week or whatever it is. You don't have to do like for the rest of your life. But if you notice that you're getting addicted to them, they are designed to be really addictive.
Yeah.
And it's just, I do struggle with the whole thing about, I love the idea of connecting and opportunity, but there's problems that come with that. It's like transactional, it's like shopping for a human being, that I find that problematic, you know. And I don't look, humans have survived for thousands of years quite well without them. So remember, they're a tool, they're not the be all and end all. So this is what I'm going to say is, go and find stories and evidence of people who met not on dating apps. And I always said, because, you know, again, actress, writer, I was like, I want to have the most epic love story. I need a good story. And my God, I got a better love story than I could have even possibly ever imagined or artificially engineered myself. And so if that's important to you, you need to like claim that and own that and be available for that. Like, what do you want to tell your grandkids if you have them? Like, I just wanted a really good story, and I got it. Walked up the aisle to Jurassic Park because dinosaurs were a huge part of how we met. And you have to read the book because it's too long, but yeah, it's available. It's all
Yes,
available.
that's why. Because I was going to say, where can they can read the book? Because I was like, everyone's going to want to know this story. So yeah, they can read. Love is coming.
Love is Coming. If you go on loveiscomingbook.com or persialawson.com, you'll be able
I'll
to
link
access
you
it
as
there. It's
well.
on Amazon as well.
Yeah. And well, there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I'll ask you these three questions to respect your time. So I know it's a big one as well. What does love, like, what does it mean to you? And has it changed over the years?
Oh, what a great question. What does love mean to me? The first thing that's just come up in my head is actually the message of my book, Love is Coming. The message of that is, I say, stop looking outside of yourself for the partner you want to get and start looking inside of yourself for the partner you want to be. I actually got emotional then. Real love, like I can really own that the way that I dealt with a really hard childhood in many ways, and an amazing childhood in other ways, but was, I put a wall up around myself, and it was like, look out for number one, because no one else is going to. That's the story I made up, and that's why work addiction, love addiction, all of those things, very unhealthy, but it was all avoidance and not dealing with myself. And true love is like, who do I want to be for someone else, for the world, not in an unhealthy, self-sacrificing way, because that doesn't actually help them. Me being a martyr and being a victim and all of, like, you know, not looking after myself does not serve the world. Who do I want to be? Well, I want to be a well-resourced person who loves and respects myself, because I could not show up with you in the energy and with the joy and love that I feel in this moment, getting to do work I love, if I didn't take care and tend to myself. And I don't do it perfectly, but that has enabled me to go from being, you know, a complete cheating addict and absolute nightmare, and working in a strip club and getting sexually assaulted in a strip club, all of this dark stuff, to being where I am today. Who do I want to be in this world? Firstly, for myself, because when you start there, everything else follows.
I love that. One of the things that I feel like so passionately about is, yeah, people who just didn't have the opportunity to learn how to experience secure love, healthy love. But I do truly believe as adults that we can teach ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's not over, and we can absolutely learn how to have a secure, healthy love. And you're literally living proof of that. I know, and you've said this, and I love, love, love that about you. Same for me. relationships aren't perfect. You know, there's still room for improvement, but they're, you know, but healthy enough,
Mm-hmm.
you know, secure enough.
Mm-hmm.
What about love, relationship, or, you know, from your experience in the past, it can be the most amazing experience, but also the most painful. So, how do you navigate when love throws you off?
As in, like, when when there's a disappointment or something goes wrong.
Disappointment doesn't go how you want it to, maybe just a fight and you can't concentrate on that thing you're excited about, whatever it might be.
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I said this today in this conversation with you or earlier in a different interview, so because that's all sort of molding into one at the moment. There's a great guy called Matt Kahn, who's, I really love his teachings. They're pretty out there and woo-woo, so they're not, you know, they're not for everyone. But he says, you know, just everything is here to help you. And I've had, you know, I arrived back a week ago from India, being away for 2 months, Sri Lanka and India. We were on our honeymoon in Sri Lanka. And I landed back to a lot of tricky stuff. And I was really jet lagged. And it was really painful, actually, and really confronting and really upset me. And I chose to look at it like I have learned to with relationships, where instead of, you know, something like me and Joe, we went through a really hard thing in the end of September 2021, or 2021 was a very challenging year for me and for us as a couple. And you know what? That then guided us to go to book Costa Rica, where we ended up doing ayahuasca for the first time together, plant medicine. It has revolutionized our relationship. And so now when things go wrong in any area of my life, love, anything, I'm like, this is here to help me. I get to choose how I meet this pain or this challenge. And if I choose to believe that there's a lesson in here that's actually going to take me up to the next level, life changes, like your experience of life changes. And even like, and how quickly I can alchemize it now. The things that happened last week, already I'm like feeling so grateful for the shit that went down. And like, it needed to happen that way, because it's often nothing change, like things don't change unless it doesn't necessarily have to be a rock bottom, but you know, you're something is painful enough that you actually have to really deal with it. Otherwise we'll just carry on and avoid and like be tra-la-la, and then no growth happens. Growth doesn't happen in our comfort zone. It happens when we're challenged, and often that's really hard. So can you start to shift it and go, this is here to help me, and my first job is come back to myself. How do I love myself through this? And not project onto the other person, give myself space, slow down, because my impulse would be, someone sends me a message, respond, right, you know, no, slow down, sleep on it, fucking sleep on it, if nothing else.
I'm pro sleep on it.
Yeah.
I am. I learned that in this relationship, to sleep on it. And I
Mm-hmm.
many times woke up in the morning, like, thank God I slept on it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And also, I have to say, in my membership, one of the classes that I do is daily check-ins, because it's all around the anxiety. And one of the things that I say is, what could come up today, triggers, or what's going on, and how can you love yourself through it? So when you said that, I was like,
Yeah.
last question is, you get to go back to any age and teach yourself a lesson in love. You can't say you wouldn't change a thing or that you've got no regrets. What would you go back and say?
Oh, it's got emotional again, because there's so many ages that I could go back to. But I think probably the most important one was when I was in that strip club in a very, very dangerous situation. And this was just after, again, coming back to the high achiever thing and how it links with love, working in that strip club. I just like finished my master's in European classical acting. What the hell was I doing there? That's the level I did not love myself, and would put myself in these dangerous situations, partly to feel something, partly because I just thought I thought it was a piece of shit, even though on the outside I looked really confident. I was loud. It was all bravado. It wasn't real. And I would just I'd get myself the fuck out of there. I would literally, you know, take myself out of there before the darkness happened. And I would just say, you are worth so much more than this. So it, you listening might not have been to that depth. You might have been in a relationship that was emotionally abusive, or we all have our own place. I was with a friend on the weekend who has been in an emotionally abusive marriage and is coming out the other side of it. And my God, I'm so proud of her and seeing the shift in her. And I said, you're back. And that's how I feel. It's like, you're back, because we really can get, we can really lose our way. But like I've seen, like, I'm so grateful that I've got the template of my parents, that they, it's like insanely rare that one addict like comes through the addiction that they had, and the fact that they've both managed to get through it in this relationship. I'm like, anything is possible. You can transform anything. There is no depth that is too dark. The stories I've seen from women, like even more extreme than mine, and like the life that they have and the relationship they have today, anything is possible, and it can change and it can transform. But and then maybe this is a good one to leave on, is leap and the net will appear. Is you've got to take that first step, and you've got to fucking trust, and you don't know what it's going to look like, and you feel like you're going to be jumping into a void. I promise you, leap and the net will appear. And the net will appear in the form of, you happen to stumble on this podcast episode and there's something that's been said in it that's going to guide you to the next thing. Or you walk into a bookshop and, as Gabby Bernstein, the, spiritual teacher says, the book falls off the shelf. Or I've had so many examples, like people write to me and how they came across something, and I don't even remember saying half the things, but something that I said like ended up changing their life. And it wasn't me. It was that they were open in that moment, and it came through, and it was like divine timing. So be open for the magic, be open for the synchronicities, be open for the coincidences, and listen to the guidance. If there's something that has been said today that has like made you think, it's stuck out for you, follow up, show up for that guidance, because it will lead you to the next step, and then that will lead you to the next step. And that is how I got from working in a strip club, being sexually assaulted in a very dangerous situation, to today being happily married, in having an amazing life, albeit not perfect, with many a challenge still. But I know how to navigate them, because I know myself, and I love myself, and I trust myself. And that's all there is to it, really.
That was amazing. I know for sure. I was just thinking then, if I had listened to this episode of someone else's podcast, everything that you said today and shared with us, I just know it would have been one that I would have listened to over and over again. I'm certain that there are so many gems in there. So thank you, thank you, thank you. When I was saying earlier in terms of why haven't I asked you yet, I'm going to take that message that this is the right time, because it's going to land with the people that need it right now. So where can people find you?
So you can head to persialawson.com, and loads of resources and stuff on there. And I'm most active on Instagram at Persia Lawson. And what I really would encourage you guys to do is, we've created recently this new scorecard. It's called the Love for Leaders scorecard. Don't worry if you don't identify with the word leader, okay, because that is what you decide it to be. But what it does is 40 questions, and they're in the categories that I've talked about earlier: heal, attract, commit. And it essentially will show you how far away you are from your ideal relationship, from the healthy, exciting, meaningful relationship that you desire. And it will show you the area, right? Okay, I'm actually really good in heal, but oh God, okay, attract, that's what I need to work on. Or maybe you're good at that, and it's like commit. You'll see your overall score, and then you'll see your score in different categories, and then it gives you bespoke advice and tips around what you need to work on. So that's a really great resource. It's completely free, and you also get a free bonus training video there as well. That will be hugely insightful. So if you go to Instagram at Persia Lawson, click the link in bio, and you'll see it there.
I'll link to it as well.
Great.
Thank you so much.